All right, everybody, let's talk blades. That's what we're into. Today, I want to do kind of my own little personal take or my own personal thoughts and comparisons between two of my favorite Spyderco knives, the Spyderco Yojimbo 2 and the Spyderco Canis. Both of these knives are designed for self-defense. Um, both knives have a Warncliffe style blade. You guys have seen my past videos of me doing a review on each of these knives. You guys can go look through my videos and find that if you wish. But right now, it's not really that. It's going to be more of what I feel about these two knives and which one I think is better than the other. Now, I had a buddy of mine ask me, which one would you rather carry? The Yojimbo 2 or the Canis? And he's the person who's kind of starting off his knife collection. And he doesn't have as many Spydercos. I think he has like an Endura and a PM2. I think that's the only two Spydercos he has right now. And he's been having his eye on the Yojimbo 2. And he also wants a Canis. And he just didn't know which one to choose, obviously. He wants both, but he wants to get the better one of the two simply because he just doesn't have the money for both right now. But essentially, I'm kind of doing this video for him. So shout out to you. You know who you are. I'm just going to tell you right now my own personal thoughts on these two knives and how I feel about them. Which one to me is slightly better, but I can tell you they're both amazing knives. So, but first, before I get into that, I want you guys to kind of think about what you're looking for in a knife. Are you looking for self-defense? Are you looking for something that you can take to work as a tool? Or are you using it just as a simple EDC because it's part of your just normal rotation? You know, I got a buddy of mine who carries around the simple stuff, his cell phone, wallet, keys, watch, a lighter because he smokes, tactical flashlight, and a tactical pen. And that's a whole lot of gear to be carrying around. Me, I just carry my simple. I have a watch on my wrist. I got my cell phone, keys, wallet, and a knife. I don't smoke. I don't need to carry a lighter. You know, I don't use a flashlight very often. If I do, I got a cell phone for that. It has its own little flashlight built in. So I just don't really see too much use in all the extra tools and things. I know, you want to be prepared for whatever you can be, but I hardly ever see myself use a tactical pen, let alone, a knife or anything outside of just its normal EDC tool-like tasks. But it's kind of funny and strange because I carry a knife mainly for self-defense, but I also use it as a tool as well. I cut zip ties. I open up boxes and packages and mail. I use a typical knife for typical stuff. Very, very, very rarely do I ever need or have the feeling like I must reach for my knife in self-defense. And that's one thing to keep in mind. So these knives are particularly designed, both of them are designed for self-defense. One's from Michael Janich, and the other one is from a maker who I cannot remember his name. Well, there's his signature. My mind is blank right now. Kelly. I apologize. I guess I was so focused on my message that I totally forgot this. It's going to come up. I know it's going to come up in the middle of everything, and I'm going to be like, that's his name. I do apologize. But this knife was designed by somebody who I think he worked with counterterrorism. He's just like this, I've never heard of this guy till this knife was created by him. But I've heard of Michael Janich, and I'm very familiar with the Yojimbo 2. As a matter of fact, I purchased the Yojimbo 2 because the original Yojimbo I can't find, and I kind of didn't want the Yojimbo because it was just a little bit shorter than I'd like it to be. So I've heard of the Yojimbo, and I purchased the Yojimbo 2 because I knew about the martial arts background of this individual who made this knife. And this individual I knew very little about, and I still is one of the reasons why I can't really remember his name. But somebody who works with that kind of background, either of them having that kind of background, have the same idea in mind about a tactical knife being just that. Now, you can throw tactical on anything. You know, I got tactical rope, I got tactical backpack, I got tactical glasses, tactical shoes, tactical gloves, tactical hat. It's all just, it's silly when you hear tactical being thrown onto a specific item, and it makes it all of a sudden you can use it for more than just what it's plainly used for. You can use it for fighting and self-defense all of a sudden, or you can use it for extreme quote-unquote means because it's tactical. It's such a strange thing, and I kind of look at things differently because I see it like, oh, well, that's how you sell it. That's your selling point. It's a tactical knife. No one wants just a box cutter. Nobody wants just a regular knife to fillet with. It is a tactical piece, so you can use it outside of its normal uses. And you know what? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's a good thing. I'm saying that it just all depends on what the user's going to use it for. That's all it really boils down to. Now, both of these knives, whenever I see a Wharncliffe, I don't know. It's not really aesthetically pleasing to me to look at a Wharncliffe. It doesn't really look like a knife to me. It looks like an incomplete knife or a broken blade. I don't know. I'm used to seeing trailing points. I'm used to seeing spear points. I'm used to seeing drop points. I'm used to seeing those things more over than anything else. I'm used to seeing spear point, yeah. All these, recurve, yeah, I'm used to seeing recurve. Persian, of course. Modified, yeah. I'm not used to seeing Wharncliffe, sheep's foot. I'm used to seeing clip point, Tonto, and drop point. Straight back. So yeah, I'm used to seeing those. Sheep's foot and Wharncliffes are kind of strange to me, but I'm coming around. These are great knives. In a self-defense scenario, whatever training you have, I think, is key, and whatever outside of put knives aside, weapons aside, whatever is probably your best bet. I should say, if you have the training, are tactical. So it's kind of like a cheesy thing to throw in there, but in all likelihood, if you catch yourself pulling a knife for self-defense uses more than you're comfortable with, you should probably think of, I don't know, something different in your lifestyle, some kind of change. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just me. But I carry a knife for the self-defense application because it just seemed like in my youth I wasn't always in the best of places. So it just kind of stuck with it. It stuck with me. And it's slowly transitioned to a knife that I use mainly as a tool more than a weapon. And I'm thankful for that. I rather use it as a tool more than a weapon anyway. It just seems a little bit strange and off-putting to me to use it for self-defense all the time, and I don't catch myself in scenarios where I do that often. So it's more realistic how you perceive what knife is used for what. I mean, you can buy this thing and use it for cutting open boxes and rope and whatever else. This doesn't necessarily have to be for self-defense, but that's what these were designed for. So this one just looks like a box cutter on steroids. That's when I first saw it. It kind of looked like a box cutter that Batman would carry. And in this, I just thought it was really strange looking because this looked like a beak of a bird. So I think that's where the thing of Canis comes from. But in all likelihood, in reality, carrying a knife is, with the intention of it being a tool. So my own personal thoughts on these are just going to they're going to be a little sway. They're going to kind of bounce back and forth. I think that the Canis is better, and I'll tell you why. I think the Canis is better because it has a slightly longer blade. The Spyderco round hole is easier to get my thumb into and to pop it open. I can do without the peel ply carbon fiber G10 handle. I just think that's kind of weird. It's either one or the other with me. If you're going to do carbon fiber, do carbon fiber. If you're going to do G10, then do G10. But I know that's going to affect the price and the quality, whatever. There's some people that say that this stuff kind of peels or starts to like fray at the end and it just looks really ugly. I've never had that experience. So unless you're beating the crap out of your knife, I really have never had that experience with peel ply carbon fiber G10 handle scales. But there's, both have cons and pros. I can tell you right now that the Canis has a lanyard hole. I don't use lanyards, at least not on knives that are a certain size and up. I only use lanyards on smaller knives that don't have pocket clips, that are just thrown in the back of your pocket. That's when I find that a lanyard kind of makes sense. But to me, if I have a pocket clip and then a lanyard sticking out, that's just more for someone to grab or getting caught on something. I just don't see the use or the practicality of a lanyard on a bigger knife that doesn't really seem to use it or need it, at least in my personal opinion. And so my thing is, the Canis is good because I feel like I have a lot to grip. And it just, I don't know, it seems to make sense to me. It really does. This seems to make a little bit more sense in its own tactical self-defense-y way, but also in an EDC-friendly way where it's well-rounded in both a tool and a weapon at the same time. So that's a win for me with the Canis. Now, with the Yojimbo, I really like it, but I can tell you right now that that tip looks paper thin. And I think that's the one thing on this knife that really, really bothers me, is how thin that tip is. So say you're in a self-defense scenario. Now, just saying. And things happen. It's not like the movies, all right? It's not going to be clean. It's not going to be perfect. Fighting is going to be all over the place. Especially if you're fighting for your life and you have adrenaline surging through you. If you miss and you hit a wall with that tip, you run a risk of ruining and damaging that tip. Say you hit a brick wall. You run the risk of snapping that tip, bending it, and then rendering it partially useless in a self-defense scenario. So that's kind of my worry, how durable that tip is going to be, because that thing is paper thin. So it's good when it comes down to, when you're cutting through material, if you're cutting through a leather jacket or if you're cutting through, any type of like thick fabric. This in a self-defense scenario would still work, but you got to be mindful of making sure that you don't hit anything, that's not intended to be hit with this, to best avoid ruining the blade. Because that tip, you only have so much reach with this thing. And if you limit your reach, now you're in, less likelihood of getting your target. Another thing that really bothers me about this knife is the handle. I love the ergos on this knife. This is perfectly molded to my hand. But so much so that it just feels like I don't have enough handle. And that kind of bothers me a little bit psychologically. Because when it comes down to opening this knife, I have to make sure that I'm in that grip. And the grip kind of feels a little short to me. Now, and I have medium-sized hands. With people with bigger hands, that can be a problem. So, and then, of course, they've designed the Yojimbo, which is basically the bigger brother of this knife. And that's all fine and great. But you want to make sure that when you hold a knife, you want to be as confident as possible with the item that you're going to use, whether if it's a tool or for self-defense. You want to make sure that you don't have any doubts. You want to be able to depend on it in every aspect of its use. So another thing that bothers me about this knife is the Spyderco round hole. Now, you can see that you can get your finger in there, But I feel like in a stressful situation, I find myself doing this. I tried to quickly take it out of my pocket, and I get to it, and I feel like I either miss it or the hole isn't completely open. Now, I don't know why they did that. For a self-defense knife, you would think you want to be able to get to that hole, and the hole is slightly obstructed right here. So getting your thumb in there, for me, it's not always 100%. It's about like 95%. That's not good. That kind of hinders the functionality of this. Now, I've seen people put waves on the PM2, and I think that that's a very, very clever thing to do. And that's great. That's, that makes it that much better. But then when you put a wave on this thing, now you're hindering the use of putting your thumb on the spine as it's designed for its own, grip. So that kind of bothers me. I don't want to have to go that extra mile. It should already be built in if the design makes it that much better. And of course, you want to have a deep carry pocket clip on your self-defense knives because you want it as deep in the pocket, so that way it's a little bit harder for other people to get at. You want to make it harder for anybody to try and grab at. I was in a scenario where I was taking somebody down and they went to reach for my knife, and my knife didn't have a deep carry pocket clip, so it was exposed about that much exposed outside my pocket. So that's about an inch, maybe a little bit less than an inch, but they were able to see that. If they see a pocket clip, they don't know exactly 100% what it is. So that kind of gives you a chance, so that way they're not going to be attracted to it. But the more they see the handle and the more they see that blade sticking from that handle, they're going to know what it is, and they see the pocket clip, they're going to know it's a knife. So that's another thing that I've learned. Deep carry pocket clips are probably the best when it comes to concealing a pocket knife, in my opinion, because they don't know what that could be. It could be your keys, it could be a flashlight, it could be something of less opportunity for them to use against you. So deep carry pocket clips, I think, are great for self-defense knives. I just wish that they put them on more self-defense knives. It just makes sense to me. So I had to fix that on my own. I just threw this isn't a Lynch. This is from Amazon. This is like a cheap $15 to $20. You can get it. It's titanium. It's cheaper than a Lynch pocket clip, but it works. So it comes from China. I don't remember what company it's from, but you can look it up, deep carry pocket clip for Spyderco, and it should come up on Amazon. But yeah, so this is a great knife. Ergonomically, it's great, and both knives sport the compression lock. So it takes your fingers away from the cutting path of the blade when you close the knife. Love that. That is a huge, huge positive thing on both of these knives. Love that. That is fantastic. Compression lock is plenty strong. And it's just great. Now, I think that this is better because this is a lot thinner. The handle stock is a lot thinner than the Yojimbo 2. So holding this knife, I feel like I have this knife in hand very well. So I really do like this. Ergonomically, it's fantastic. This one is just ever so slightly off, but I feel like there's a fuller handle. It just feels like it fills the hand just a little bit more, and you still got that little bit of extra out there in case you ever need to reach back. And that right there, the jimping on this shows you where your thumb needs to be, so that saber grip is good either way. You got a reinforced tip here, so that makes it less likely for this to be paper thin like that, because it just comes and it tapers right down to a very thin tip. And that always kind of makes me a little nervous carrying that, because you never know. So those are just things to take in consideration. Like I said, I would rather go for the Canis over the Yojimbo 2 for those reasons. And I'm sure there's other reasons that I haven't gotten to as well, but that's fine. I don't have much time to to really get into depth. But in my own personal opinion, these two knives are both great at self-defense, carryability, and ergonomics. It just depends on your own personal preference on whether or not you want something with a little bit longer knife, or if you don't care, they're both Wharncliffes, so who gives a crap? You know what I mean? It's just, it's what you want to choose, how you want to choose it, if you want to choose it. If that makes any sense. So, Uh, everybody's got their own tastes, so it just depends on the person, really. But those are my personal opinions on which one I think is great. They're both designed for the same thing. They're both awesome knives, so you pick and choose. Anyways, go ahead and slash that like button, stab that subscribe, slice that bell icon so you guys are notified anytime I post new stuff in these craziest of times. Everybody, please be kind, be safe, carry responsibly, and I'll see you all amazing people in the next video.